Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. It is Wednesday, July 6th at 7:05 p.m. I'm a bit late on this podcast, this quick cast. I apologize. Got a couple comments from people on Twitter saying they would like to hear an old-fashioned handsome hour, even bigger, in reaction to the news. I think it was last Friday that broke about the Big Ten welcoming or adding UCLA and USC. And if you're like me, by this time you've heard a bunch of pundits talk about it, people that do this for a living. Maybe you haven't heard a normal guy, a person just like you, reacting to it. I waited a little bit for to do the quick cast here for multiple reasons, but one of the biggest was I was simply traveling. I was in Pac-12 country. If you follow us on Twitter, you know that I was in Oregon. My brother-in-law got married. He's a Purdue alum, and my whole family was out there. And I didn't have my computer. I didn't have anything. I couldn't have really effectively done a quick cast in a way that would have I would have been happy to get the quality out there. The Wi-Fi was a little spotty where I was, and on top of that, I didn't have my computer, so it would have been done by the phone, and I didn't really want to do it. So here I am, a little bit of reaction, and I wanted to put some thoughts into this whole thing and let you guys know where I stood on it if you want to hear it. I appreciate you tuning in. And if you are tuning in, thanks. You can head over to our sponsors, gridironmetalworks.com. They make great grill grates. Inner boiled at checkout. Get 15% off Martin Vintage for a Heritage Purdue t-shirt and soft cotton or 50-50 blend, pardon me, and owned by a Purdue family. Good stuff there. And then, of course, AJ's, eataj's.com. If you're near campus, grab a pint, get a burger, order ahead at eataj's.com if you want to get it back to your place. Easy peasy. Greg, thanks for tuning in. I see that you're live. Thanks a lot. Greg, his first line says Big 16, and right on. That's where we stand right now. UCLA and USC up the number from 14 to 16 in the conference. As you know, there have been a lot of rumors and conjectures going around. People are saying that the Big Ten has really rolled out the red carpet for Notre Dame once again, and they're waiting to hear Notre Dame's final reaction before any more movement happens. So in case you don't know this, Notre Dame's NBC contract is up in 2025. That's kind of the linchpin of what is holding them where they are in their situation. As you know, Notre Dame has always had the idea that they would like to be independent, stay independent, because they think they're in another strata than the rest of the college football world. They've turned down the Big Ten's overtures many times. The last couple times were under Delaney's watch. This is part of the reason if you see our Twitter feed, I said Notre Dame can go pound sand. I really don't care. My disdain for Notre Dame outweighs my love for any Big Ten network monies that might come out of this. If you don't know this, current Big Ten agreement yields about $53 million per year for each school. It's a lot of money. It's more money than any of the other TV contracts yield. And it's estimated that with the addition of USC and UCLA, that number will go up to close to $100 million a year for every school, thanks to the gobbling up of the second biggest TV market in America after New York City, which the Big Ten Network also has. What Delaney's plan was to expand the Big Ten footprint into the major TV markets. He got DC. He went after Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and getting Penn State and kind of surrounding that area, gathering Maryland. Rutgers, of course, many Big Ten fans still are scratching their heads as they watch Rutgers as a Big Ten team. Even Maryland doesn't make much sense. Nebraska, of course, was an attempt to grab more of Middle America. Nebraska needed help. Maryland needed help financially, and we've learned, if you've been listening and reading articles, UCLA also needed help financially. Supposedly USC was in a better position financially, but much like Maryland, UCLA they weren't doing financially well. Their athletic department wasn't, so this was a good move for them. This is also good news for move for the future for both of those programs. It just looks to me like the further away we got from the last Pac-12 television agreement and the way that conference had been run, it just looked like that conference has struggled to keep up with the leadership of the Big Ten and, of course, the SEC. Sankey, it's a cutthroat business. We've seen this. Texas and Oklahoma were swiped away by the SEC from the Big 12, and now the Big 10 goes and swipes away USC and UCLA. So in this era, you just see the gobbling up of big names. Next up, I think, if you look, it's Notre Dame or Stanford or whoever. Any of those schools, and even Oregon, there's all rumors around that. But I think Notre Dame will be the next chip to fall. And getting Notre Dame, obviously, it's a national brand. They have pretend alumni everywhere. But gathering up Stanford specifically would be good. You get Northern California, you get San Francisco, another mega TV market. Granted, a lot of people don't love college football out there, but it's a big TV market. And what that does is leverages cable companies. And so if you haven't been paying attention to this, another thing is that the entities that are bidding on the Big Ten television, the BTN contract, the next one, are everybody from Apple TV to Amazon to NBC to CBS to, of course, Fox, still trying to stay in the fight. And many of you are probably like me, or traditional Big Ten fans. You're saying, this is weird. It is weird, but it's also magnificent in a way to think of the idea of USC or UCLA hosting Purdue in early season. I can just think that's going to be interesting, at least for a couple years. I thought it was a big deal when Purdue first started going to Penn State. That was cool. I haven't gotten any thrill like that since, with the additions of Maryland and Rutgers and Nebraska, of course. But USC and UCLA, just kind of the look of the stadium, the look of the uniforms. If you're a traditional college football fan, that, if nothing else, those visuals will be odd and cool to see. They'll create more TV buzz and more interest among the casual football fan. I think if you have USC playing Michigan or Ohio State or Penn State, that will have the feel of a preview of a big bowl game, right? Even in the early versions of this, it will be an exciting thing to see, and the casual fan will glom onto that. How quickly will it take for us to get used to it and feel old? I don't know. What will happen with the creativity of scheduling? That's another thing we really don't know, and this is where that Kevin Warren can prove himself to be very, very worthwhile at his job. If he can open himself up to a creative solution here, the Big Ten could do some very neat things. If you pay attention to Anish, he's been talking about the possibility of additional expansion all the way out, much, much bigger numbers for a couple of years. We all talked about it on Handsome Hours in years past. But Anish's idea is the idea of pods that would take away from the strain of travel. So you'd have a pod of, let's say it's 4 pods of 5, if we get up to 20 teams, or if it gets to 24, which a lot of people think that's kind of the magic number if you divide it up into 3 super conferences. It all depends on what happens. Why did the Big Ten do it, though? This is the big question. A lot of people are saying, this is greedy, it's a cash grab, whatever. Well, this is real simple. If you're paying attention to the SEC and the way the SEC was talking, they weren't just talking about the SEC becoming a bigger conference to sing Kumbaya and hold hands with the other conferences. It was a very cutthroat move the last time, and they were talking about scheduling models that did very, very aggressive things that would have busted up anything. And they tried to power play against the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the Pac-12, specifically with the BCS, or pardon me, the national championship and the playoff. Sorry about the use of BCS. But Sankey made no bones about it that there was a stake being put in the ground. So the Big Ten really, its hand was forced, in my opinion, that either you grow right now, you go after a big dog, and if it's there, you go grab it, and if you don't, you die. And I think it was kind of that simple. I'm not a huge fan of this idea, but at the same time, with this rapidly changing world we're in of college sports, everything's changing. Everything's in flux. The Big Ten had to do something to kind of keep up with the Joneses, and there is only one other Jones, and that is the SEC. One of the podcasts I listened to and watched, they mentioned that the Big Ten and the SEC had such dominance from a television standpoint last season. You had, I I think out of the top 20 games last year, only 2 of them were non-Big Ten or Big Ten or SEC games. I think that's right. It's either 2 or 4. And so it really had become a 2-horse race. And schools like, if you think of schools like Arizona State, Arizona State's in a pretty big television market, but still doesn't get any TV number. And that's partially because of the way the conference has been led and their TV contract has been put together. The way they're televised, the way the product is packaged, it hasn't been interesting enough. The Big Ten Network has done a pretty good job at creating some excitement around the brand, and I think they'll continue to do that. I think it's going to take some really, really smart people as we transition from what we've all known, and if you're watching this, probably known and loved for a long time about college football and even how it touches college basketball, to whatever comes next. So where do I stand on this? Like I said, I'm super excited to see USC and UCLA as Big Ten teams playing those games on game day Saturday. I'm excited to see a Big Ten Saturday lasting from 11 a.m. till 1 a.m. because it will. That's a pretty cool thing if you're a junkie like me for college football. But I'll watch anything. Truth be told, if I'm still up at 12:30 or 1, I'll tune into a Colorado State game, and you're probably a lot like me if you're watching this and tuning into it. Travis Mosley says, I live in Cali. I'm ready. And I guarantee if you're a Purdue alum or a Purdue fan and you're in California, you've been waiting for this for a long time, and you've been watching it in a weird way. I watched an IndyCar race in Oregon at 9:30 in the morning on Sunday. I thought that was really, really cool. And all I could think about was how neat this experience will be for some of those Purdue alums who are out west. My brother-in-law, one of them, who loves to follow Purdue, but his life, as a fan, will be affected. It's pretty darn cool. But anyway, this is going to have long-lasting effects. I don't like that Notre Dame has the power that's being perceived as right now. But the truth is that's a good brand. It's a strong brand. I get why they're going to try to make one more charge at them. And it feels to me like, based on what we're hearing about the Big 12 going and pulling Arizona and I think it was 4 schools, going and pulling those 4 schools, one of the biggest being Arizona, into the Big 12. The Big 12 all of a sudden becomes that third conference, maybe not quite as strong as the SEC and the Big 10, but the third one. And that, of course, would lead to the Pac-12 wilting, becoming something completely different, especially if you see Stanford and Oregon getting gobbled up by the Big Ten. But I don't know how this ends. Neither do you. The people that tell you they understand it, they're doing it based on conjecture, and we're all kind of along for the ride. So any of us can state our opinion on this stuff. I think it's a good thing. But when we start saying this is the way it's going to go, you're stabbing in the dark. And it's neat if you've been able to guess that this was going to come, but you weren't able to guess that USC and UCLA was coming to the Big Ten. And whoever was in charge at the athletic departments and up high in the universities who was able to keep this a secret, that's an impressive feat. I say it all the time. Keeping a secret with any more people than 5 is really tough to do, especially when you have a bunch of people that have access to the media and speak and talk to people, just do natural conversations. It's really hard to keep a secret, but somehow they did it. Now, did USC know about a potential Big Ten agreement when they hired Lincoln Riley? I would say they probably didn't, but who knows? The reason I say they probably didn't, I just think it's a long shot for them to have kept this secret that long. Maybe they had heard there were overtures and the Big Ten was kind of silently waiting in the grass, in the weeds, as the SEC made moves. Who knows? But that move looks pretty good right now by Lincoln Riley, and it looked awfully odd, I think, months ago. Just kind of a head-scratcher. Even with a lot of money on the table, it looked odd. Ancient Astronaut says, I'm ready to start slapping these schools in basketball and getting absolutely ruined in football. I don't think you need to think that way. Let's really look at what UCLA and USC have been in the last decade. Now, Lincoln Riley is a great coach, and he could do something special. But I would look at 2 things. One, I would look at what these programs have actually been on the field, what their records have been the last few years. Granted, they made a big, big play by getting Lincoln Riley, and he will bring an exciting offense, and it'll be fun. But the other thing is, has Nebraska come in and dominated? Did Penn State come in and dominate? No, they didn't. I think they both thought they would. That's the funny thing. They both thought they would. But somebody had a great tweet earlier about USC potentially starting 8-0, and then their last 4 games being Purdue, Ohio State, Michigan State, and Nebraska, or something along those lines. And they all talked about their fear of Purdue. And they should fear Purdue, honestly. In November, Purdue has been pretty damn good. It's not just this year. Purdue is good as an underdog. Purdue is getting better as a program. I think one of the best effects of this move of getting USC and UCLA is more money is pumped in the program, and that whisper, that talk we heard from Jeff Brom about going back to Louisville and not ruling out that, to me, that talk gets turned way, way down, at least in the immediate future, meaning for years. If you're a guy who loves Jeff Brom, I know not all Purdue fans do. I like Jeff Brom. I like what he's done for the program. I like that he's injected a ton of enthusiasm in the fan base. And anytime a coach that's sitting who we've got good feelings about starts talking about his alma mater, I hate that. But I would have to say Brom is also a pretty smart guy, and seeing Purdue becoming one of the elite schools by proxy, just being in one of the elite conferences, that is a very, very big deal. If you want to look at the Purdue-centric look at this, I think it has to start there. The second part, of course, when you add basketball schools, I don't know what this does. I don't understand any of this, what this does in the long run. What's this do with the realignment of the East and West conferences? I don't know what this does to that either, because I don't think it's done. But remember, 24-25 is the first season. So we've got a couple of years on that, and we've got some time for additions to be made. I do think additions will come. I don't think this is it at the Big 16, although if you look at the logo, we've been talking about for years here at Boyle Sports, B1G always looked like a 16 to everybody if you've got eyes to see it. But I don't think this is where it's going to be settled. Let's see. Yeah, just some other comments. The people in the comments are just saying they like Brom too. Todd Singer says, I'm with you on Notre Dame. I hope they hesitate and get left out. They're in an interesting position because they are not the powerhouse that they were a couple of years ago, just from the fact they don't have the TV contract in hand. And their TV contract is not worth what it used to be. When they first signed that way back in the late 80s, early 90s, probably in the early 90s, they were a mega dog in a kind of a different situation. Well, now that their contract and their ability to push their brand and become something that was a complete elite on its own type of deal, that's not there anymore. And the game is going to change one way or the other. We don't know if it's going to be 4 mega conferences, 3 mega conferences, 2 mega conferences in the coming years and 5 years. And we don't know how this affects college football in the long run. This, coupled with NIL being unfettered because the NCAA did a poor job at building the rules around that, is the NCAA even an entity that matters in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? Who knows? They've got to do some stuff that makes the schools want to respect them. And right now it looks like they're in big, big trouble of being a complete dinosaur. That's another thing. So the NIL, and then, of course, the transfer rules being what they are. All this is just a soup of confusion, and I don't know what is on the other side. So thanks for tuning in. Appreciate your time. Sorry about the delay on getting this out, because I know some of you said you wanted to hear our thoughts. We are trying to put together a handsome hour. The big thing is schedule, and I'll be honest, simple motivation for, I'm not going to name names. I don't do that. It's not my style. But a couple people on the site may not be in mid-season form. Let's just say that, right? With Little League and backyard drinking and running through the sprinkler, whatever it is. I'm not going to name names, but I will say it's not this guy keeping that from happening. And if you want to put pressure on those guys on Twitter, you know they have their own accounts. I don't. I work through the Boiled Sports Twitter account. So, but thanks for expressing interest in that. I do appreciate that, and we all do. So hope to talk to you soon. God bless you. Hammer down. We'll see you.